In business and in life, you need a guide. If you're working without that guide, I want you to imagine how much more you could accomplish if you had support, if you had the help of someone who has been there before, and if you had the help of someone who can keep you accountable week after week. If you think you might be a good fit to work with me through coaching, I want you to head on over to privatepracticeworkshop.com/coaching to apply. That's privatepracticeworkshop.com/coaching to apply. All right, today we are talking about 5 lessons that I've learned in building 5 businesses. And so this second business is the one and only Private Practice Workshop. All right, let's dive in. All right, 5 lessons that I have learned in building this very business. So so many lessons learned. Picking just 5 is hard because in this business and in life, it seems like there's a lesson a day. But for now, I'm going to share the 5 biggest ones that I could think of when in thinking about my journey in building Private Practice Workshop. First of all, this business started as just a blog and just a fun place to a fun way to kind of write about the lessons I was learning in my first practice at Clarke Therapy, which we talked about in yesterday's episode. So it started off as just a blog. I didn't know that other people were doing it at the time either. I just started blogging. And through that process, I didn't think about a couple things. I didn't think about how I was going to monetize it. Didn't think about who else is doing it or how I was going to be different. I just didn't have a plan, to be honest. I just started doing it. It was really like a hobby. And then at some point I realized I wanted to make some money from this thing. I wanted this to be part of my job because I enjoyed it so much. And then I needed to kind of roll out a plan retroactively after I'd already been doing it for a year and a half or something. So whatever you're doing, please start with a plan. Don't do what I did. Please start with a plan. So I learned that lesson in building this business and have tried to at least apply it in the future businesses that I've created since the start of Private Practice Workshop. All right, let's get into the 5 lessons that I learned in building this business. And I already started to kind of touch on this a little bit, but number 1 would just be study the market first. See what is already out there. And one thing I'm keenly aware of in the longer I'm in this industry is that there's already a lot of people doing what I'm doing in a way, right? Private practice, coaching, and consulting. And in fact, there's so many businesses out there, private practice blank, accelerator, startup, launcher, whatever, workshop, everything. There's 100 variations of this private practice blank. So that's kind of the first problem in this business is not having studied the market to see what is already out there, and in a sense, what is already owned in the market. Okay, so number 1 is study the market first. Number 2, which is very much related to study the market first, is learn about category design. Okay, so I'll tell you real quickly what category design is all about if you're not familiar. Essentially, rather than competing to be number 2 for a category that's already owned in an industry, you really want to go after a category that's not already owned. So in my opinion, there's already been, some influencers who have already owned the category of like private practice blog, right? And so knowing that, I would think if I was going to do this all over again, I would think about what are the categories out there in the industry, which of them are already owned, and which one am I going after? Okay, so and this actually has a lot to do with a big decision that I've made and coming up very, very soon, which is to basically rebrand myself under my personal name, because there are so many private practice blank businesses out there, and they're all great. They're great for different reasons, but the result is it creates noise and it creates confusion in the market, right? So, but the one thing that is true about, or that is truly different about this business is always going to be me, that I'm different, right? So I want to position myself at the very center of that, of this brand. Okay. So, learning about category design is absolutely huge. I'm also going to talk a lot about this when we talk about the lessons I've learned in building unconditional media, because I will say that is a very good example of category design. So I came into this space and realized that there wasn't a trustworthy company, a trustworthy place for therapists to get help with digital marketing, right? So created unconditional media to meet that need, to really own that category. And we've really been able to accomplish that in a short period of time because that category wasn't owned yet. Huge lesson for me, huge idea for me to learn about, and I'm still learning about it. I'm still implementing it. But if you're thinking about yourself and your business or your big idea, please think about category design first. Number 3, another big lesson in building this business: connect with influencers as soon as possible. If you're serious about being in this industry and in practice building and private practice, and you want to become an influencer, then connect with other influencers first. That's one of the best things that you can do. And I actually think working with a coach is a good way to do that, because what's going to happen is if you work with me, I'm going to connect you to the other influencers that I know, whether it's Kelly Higdon, Joe Sanok, Laura Long, whomever, right? It's going to open up a lot of doors for you. And so if I had known that in the beginning, I think I would have connected with influencers, other influencers a lot earlier, and that would have helped elevate myself in this business a lot quicker than it did. So that's a lesson learned. Number 4, build your audience first. Okay, so for any kind of content-driven business, you really want to build this audience and then eventually figure out ways to kind of monetize what you're doing, right? Again, I'm giving away a lot of stuff for free every single week, every single day, etc. And then at some point, I've got to ask something of you all so that I can still eat and be fed and run a business all the while. So you give away a lot of stuff for free in exchange for eventually having an ask of your audience. But if I had known first, I would focus even more intensely on building that audience first before trying to develop any products or services. So lesson learned. And kind of implementing that lesson all along the way. Number 5, last one, build a business that plays to your strengths. A good example of this is that I spent many months in one of my first summers building private practice workshop, just trying to build online courses. And I think I know a lot more about online courses now and can build them a lot better. And we'll be building some pretty soon. But at the time, I was doing it just because I felt like I should. I saw other people doing it and I just thought, wow, this is the thing to do. So what I want to say is build a business that plays to your strengths. Don't do things just because you feel like you should do them. I had to drink a little water there. Don't build a business out of obligation or what you see other people doing or what you see working for them, because it won't necessarily work for you. And in fact, it probably won't work for you until you figure out what your thing is. So take your time figuring out what that thing is. Don't rush it. And I think you'll be glad that you didn't. All right, there's my 5 lessons. Again, number 1, study the market first. Number 2, learn about category design. Number 3, connect with influencers as soon as possible. Number 4, build your audience first. Number 5, build a business that plays to your strengths. All right, that's all we've got for you. So don't forget to follow along and leave me some comment. Leave me a comment on Instagram at @TheJohnClarke. Submit your questions for the show there at @TheJohnClarke. Rate, review, that's a hard one. Rate, review, and subscribe to this show on iTunes. And I will see you tomorrow for 5 lessons learned about building my current group practice, Charlotte Counseling and Wellness. Hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.